follow the Mini? Well, with a bigger Mini, of course, and that's what BMC codenamed its ADO16, was destined to be. Another brainchild of engineering genius Alec Issigonis, the 1100-1300 range was designed to take the British family car market by storm. So was it a bigger Mini or just trading on status? Well, I'm going to take this gorgeous Vanden Plas Princess 1300 for a drive and find out.
But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition.
After the rampant success of the Mini, BMC decided they wanted the same but bigger. And happy with Issigonis' work on the Mini, they commissioned him to do so. Now, Issigonis wanted to create a Mini that was more sophisticated, a bit more spacious and more family-sized. The big Mini project was codenamed Amalgamated Drawing Office Project 16, or ADO16 for short. And keen to continue that instant see it, love it success that the Mini had had with its bright, happy face, BMC commissioned Pininfarina to design the ADO16 after their runaway success with the A40 And when you bear that car in mind, you can see quite a lot of its influence in this car. Those fins at the back, that big front radiator grille. I think this is a cracking looking little car. It's bright, it's happy, and it's stylish and chic by the standards of the day. But it was more than a pretty face. Issigonis was behind this, remember, so it was going to have some clever engineering. For a start, it had the same transverse mounted A-series engine that the Mini had become famous for. Better packaging, and that meant better interior space. And then there was the suspension. Issigonis looked at the interconnected front to back setup on the Citroën 2CV, liked it, but felt that he could do better. And after a bit of research and development, came up with what was called hydrolastic suspension.
Hydrolastic suspension uses fluid-filled displacer units in place of springs and shocks, which are interconnected between the front and rear wheels. Each displacer contains a rubber spring, and displaced fluid passes through rubber valves to achieve a damping effect. The displaced fluid is transferred to the paired wheel. When a front wheel encounters a bump, fluid is transferred to the corresponding rear displacer, which lowers the rear wheel, lifting the rear and minimising pitch caused by bumps.
But how does hydrolastic translate to the real world? Well, for a start, there's the ride. We're driving down a rutted B road here, and yet it's remarkably smooth and composed. It's soft, it's comfortable. It's certainly not a Citroën DS, but it's a lot more comfy than a Mini is. And what about the driving experience? Well, it's definitely bigger than a Mini. There's more body roll, there's more lean, and it feels that much heavier. But doesn't feel like a 50s Cadillac either. The hydrolastic is remarkably composed and capable on a twisty road. It really does control itself very well. Steering's nice and direct, feels planted, chuckable. It's a really nippy little thing. It's definitely bigger than a Mini, but it's still got that fun-loving, chuckable DNA to it. But B-Road antics don't sell family cars, and after Issigonis was drafted off to do other projects in BMC, Charles Griffin took over the ADO16's development. He wanted to make this car more spacious inside, more roomy, and to give a more upmarket feel than the Mini. And there were various ways he achieved that. For a start, yes, the transverse engine gave you more legroom, but it also meant that there was no transmission tunnel going down the middle of the car. That meant you could have a low, flat floor, and that gave you a more refined seating position. You felt like you were sitting in the car rather than on it. And much like the ADO67 Land Crab would do, that we've covered before, the window line was low as well. There was a massive glass house in this car, and that gives you a great view of the road ahead, and it makes the cabin feel light and airy. Another element that makes such a small car feel enormous inside. To make the ADO16 as successful as possible, BMC took advantage of every brand in their stable. You could buy this car from 1962 with any of their badges on it. The Austin or the Morris for a more basic, affordable model, the MG for a sportier taste, or a Riley, Wolseley, or this posh Vanden Plas if you wanted something more upmarket. And indeed, each one of those badges brought with it differences. Different grills and headlights, for example, different wheels, and slightly different interior trim. In this Vanden Plas, for example, I've got a padded dashboard, I've got nice walnut door cappings and the dashboard, and these lovely leather armchairs that are properly comfortable, and I've even got a nice fold-down armrest for my captain of industry feel. And what's more, despite all this extra engineering, this extra space and size, and this more upmarket surrounding, the ADO16 was not an expensive car. In fact, it was only around £140 more than the equivalent Mini. So you were paying a little bit more, getting really rather a lot more. And BMC kept pushing to make this car more popular, more expansive, and to really offer something for everyone. In 1965, the automatic was added, but it was discovered that auto box was sapping an awful lot of power from the engine. So by late 65, a new carburettor was added and a higher compression ratio introduced to bring the power up on automatic cars, to bring them level in performance with manual 1100s. Now that's the kind of work that we can't really imagine Austin under British Leyland ever taking the time to do. By 1967, the Mark II ADO16 was introduced with the 1275 A-series engine that you got in cars like the Mini Cooper and the MG Midget. There was also an all-synchro gearbox added to make it easier to live with day to day, and with it a new badge, the 1300. Now with that added performance and better motorway ability, the ADO16 had a waiting list. Now that sounds not too unusual today, where pretty much every new car has a waiting list for it, but back in the 60s, for an affordable family saloon car to have months and months of wait for it was almost unheard of. Unlike a lot of the what might have beens and the so nearlys in the BMC and British Leyland story then, the ADO16 started good and just got better and better, and with it, its popularity continued. All in all, 2.4 million ADO16s were sold, and for most of its life, it was Britain's best-selling car, eclipsing anything from Vauxhall or even the ubiquitous Ford Cortina, and you can even see its influence today on the roads. Look at certain British road signs and you'll notice a car silhouette on them. Look closely and it is actually the silhouette of an ADO16. It was such a common, popular sight at the time those road signs were designed in the late 60s, early 70s, they felt that the silhouette of the 1100 was the perfect car for it. So even when these cars aren't a common sight on the roads anymore, they're still a common sight while using them. When you look at every mark and model in the BMC and British Leyland back catalogue, for me, the ADO16 could be their absolute high watermark, because not only did it encapsulate every bit of style and engineering and genuine knowledge and ability in the company at the time, but it stood the test of time. It didn't dwindle in popularity. It remains a charming, lovable, fun to drive car even 60 years on today as a proper classic car. It puts a smile on the face of everyone driving it and everyone seeing it. It's a charming little thing and it's easy to fall in love with. And what's more, for me, it combines two famous phrases. Because yes, good things do come in small packages, but also bigger often is better. So in every sense of the word then, the ADO16 1100 really was a big Mini.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.